like to welcome everybody. Thank you so much for participating. You've joined the webinar. I'm sure you know you've joined the webinar to join in the participatory Charrette event for the new Murfreesboro Housing Authority Mercury Park project. We are beginning the master planning process, and we appreciate your interest in joining with us. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to start the presentation. I'd like to first introduce myself. My name is Margaret Butler. I'm with McCarty Holsapple McCarty Architects in Knoxville, Tennessee, and have a team here with us today of architects from our office, and so we are very happy to be here and appreciate the opportunity. As I mentioned, this is the very first meeting for the Mercury Park Master Plan, and today's focus will be sharing information and gathering information from you. We have a team not only from McCarty Holsapple McCarty, but a team of professionals from Murfreesboro that are participating in this effort. Of course, the owner, Thomas Rowe, is here with us today from Murfreesboro Housing Authority, and then the landscape and planning firm of Reagan Smith, community relations, Terry Sterling of Sterling Communications, Bill Huddleston and Will Duke are with us from Huddleston Steel, and the owner's representative, Andon Faison, is here with us from Partners Development, working with the Housing Authority. This is, if you'll recall, this is very much the same team that about 2 years ago was doing the same process for the Housing Authority for Oakland Court. And you may or may not know that Oakland Court is now under construction, and we're very excited to see that starting to come out of the ground. But there's a very different component to this effort in that we had a very successful public engagement process in the Oakland Court master planning that was held there in the Maple Room at the Housing Authority. But as we all know, COVID-19 has changed our lives in significant fashion, and certainly gathering a lot of people together to really closely talk and look at drawings is not something that we can do in today's COVID climate. So we've had to move this to an online virtual planning process. Glad you're here with us. So you've kind of get that far into the process with us, but I'll just, since these online virtual meetings are somewhat new to us, they may be new to you as well, and just a few little pointers as we move through the process today, or the presentation today. You'll see on your screen, I hope you'll see an element that says raise your hand in your toolbar there, and please feel free to raise your hand if you've got a question. We'll try to see that and call on you. There is a question and answer bubble that looks like this, and you can click on that and ask a question. During the presentation, we'll try to answer it. One of our team members will try to answer it, but if not, we'll have some question and answers at the end of the presentation. Also at the end of the presentation, at the end of the webinar, you will see a little prompt that can also take you to an online survey. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible. Also, Richard's available to help us in some digital boards that we're trying to get folks to engage with online. So yeah, hope I've kind of tried to help orient you to this process online. And if you have any questions, just shoot us a question, even if it's about the techniques of this type of virtual operation. We'll be happy to answer those. So on to the content for tonight. We're talking about the Mercury Park Master Plan that is composed of both Parkside, Murfreesboro Housing Authority's Parkside development, which is located, this is Mercury Boulevard to orient you a little bit, Parkside development, and the Mercury Court current development there on Mercury Boulevard. This process will be ultimately built out in two phases. The first phase will be the replacement of Parkside, and the second phase will be the replacement of the Mercury Court development. The projected timeline is really the next 2 to 3 months. We'll be finishing up the master planning process. We'll be going for rezoning on these properties, and we'll be moving into the design and construction, and hopefully have that Parkside project completed by the end of 2023. There is a second phase, as I mentioned, on Mercury Court's footprint, and we hope that we'd move on into construction and complete that by 2024, but that's totally dependent on funding, and so that's a hope right now, and we'll plan for that, but that may be delayed with regard to how THDA allows that funding to happen. So that's the plan in terms of time frame. I'd like to kind of review with you a little bit the actual sites in a little more detail. What you see now is an overall map of Murfreesboro with some areas highlighted: the Avenue, Town Center, the Oakland Court project that we completed and that's under construction now is located here just north of the downtown area of Murfreesboro that's highlighted. You'll see MTSU's campus highlighted, and our project, Mercury Court and Parkside replacement, is located here. I'll also point out, as you're coming in on 70 South, that's a pretty important kind of gateway area as you enter the city to move toward the downtown. So it is a prominent site. As I mentioned, it's these three properties, and I think that's unique as opposed to the way we planned the Oakland Court site. We do have three non-contiguous properties that will be affecting here. So it's a little bit unique, but I think it does have a huge impact on this particular neighborhood in Murfreesboro. Touching on first the Parkside, looking at that in a little more detail, you see this Google Earth image. The existing Parkside property is composed of 6 buildings, makes up 46 housing units, and a mix of 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedrooms. It's sited on 2 and a little over 2 3/4 acres. Both of these properties have some really great relationships, not only to a smaller scale residential neighborhood to the north, but just right adjacent to Patterson Park and the community facility there, and all the assets and meeting spaces, recreation spaces, outdoor pavilions, playgrounds, that type of thing is right adjacent to the property, which we think is important. The buildings, while they do look nice on the outside, that exterior renovation kind of belies what's inside the Mercury. The Parkside housing units, as they were built in the 50s, early 50s, and haven't seen a whole lot of renovation since then. And that type of construction is very hard and arduous and expensive for the housing authority to maintain. So that's one of the main reasons for the idea that it would be kind of start anew on that property and develop that with new modern facilities. The current Parkside program, or as I mentioned, is 46 units and 6 buildings. Due to the funding mechanism the housing authority will put in place, that these 46 units will be replaced in what we call a 1-for-1 replacement, is that if we have 8 one-bedrooms, we'll put back 8 one-bedrooms. Same 2 bedrooms, 22 bedrooms, 22 bedrooms will be replaced, 16 3-bedrooms and 2 4-bedrooms, and that's what will go back in its place. Don't have a lot of leeway in there due to the funding structure provided through the tax credit program. On the Mercury Court site, however, it's about 14.7 acres. It currently has 76 units, and as you can see, and when you drive through the neighborhood, those are mostly duplexes. It has 41 buildings composed of 1 to 5 bedroom units. There are additionally 2 non-residential buildings, a daycare and a small health clinic along Mercury Boulevard, which will remain, or the only thing that will remain will be the healthcare clinic, and it will not remain there in that building, but that function will remain as we master plan the future site. Again, built in the era of the 60s in a low scale, kind of suburban type of development, and very similar to what we found in the original Oakland Park housing. And that was very much the way those developments were laid out in that time period. Mercury Court presents a little bit different development opportunity. It currently has 76 units and composed of 1 through 5 bedrooms. Interesting thing, all the residents that are currently in Mercury Court will be the second phase of residents that move into Oakland Park. So everybody that's on site there at Mercury will soon be moving in 2022 to a new home up in the Oakland Park area. So that's what leaves Mercury Court vacant. There is not a funding structure in place that requires a certain number of a certain type of unit in Mercury Court. Certainly the Housing Authority wants to make sure that that property is developed optimally. So we will be kind of finalizing that through this master planning process. The interesting thing is we've taken a stab at 100 units here on this projected diagram you see here. And we are making those projections based on a waiting list the Housing Authority has, which numbers right at 800. 800 residents or households are on a waiting list, and sometimes through the past years that has been upwards of 1,000 people. So that certainly illustrates a need for affordable housing in the community. And based on that waiting list and what those residents asked for, whether they needed a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, or so forth, we allocated proportionally that to these 100 units. So it looks like a little more emphasis in the 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom will be a possibility of what's developed there. So the context is very hugely important to any master planning process. This particular neighborhood or area of this neighborhood has some unique features. As you can see in this diagram, this green area being largely single-family residential kind of comes up to Mercury Court and Parkside here. And however, this neighborhood is not embedded in a single-family kind of residential area as Oakland Court was. It really fronts, as I mentioned before, along Mercury Boulevard, and right across the street is a very large Mercury Plaza commercial business area, and to the east as well. And that provides some opportunities. It might suggest that there may be a little bit different development pattern here at the edge of a large boulevard like that. As I mentioned before, with Patterson Park, the community center there, right between the Parkside and the Mercury Court properties, that park and that park, Patterson Park area provides a wonderful opportunity for residents. Again, as I mentioned, Mercury Boulevard. Now we're looking from the other direction. We're looking north now. This is the Mercury Court property. That's the Patterson Park, Parkside property here. Patterson Park is located in between. And I just wanted to point out, showing these arrows, that this whole neighborhood, if they're getting down to Mercury Boulevard, it's a major thoroughfare through Murfreesboro. They're going to come through our neighborhood. Again, this large shopping center across the street provides a unique edge condition here. And so whereas we're providing the edge along Mercury Boulevard, we're also going to want to make sure that these streets that come through our neighborhood are maintained, and we address the street. And that's one thing that you may know if you know about our approach to Oakland Court, is the way the street was addressed was very important, providing a nice streetscape for the residents of Murfreesboro. Again, just some photographs of the Patterson Park Community Center and the open air park pavilion, all the different types of recreation, community meeting spaces. It's just a wonderful asset, and we will be working with the Parks and Recreation Department to make sure that any connections and relationship between the public park property and the housing authority property is carefully considered, and we encourage that use between those, but do it in a very sustainable and safe, secure way as well. The neighboring residential area in this part of town is quite a small scale. Not some of the larger homes you see closer to downtown, historic homes you see closer to the downtown proper area of Murfreesboro, small scale, and older for the most part. But however, you are seeing some signs of new investment in this area from the private investors renovating older homes or building new homes in vacant lots. So it's certainly a hope that the Housing Authority's investment in this neighborhood at this time will only encourage and support private investment in the neighborhood and be good for the economic development of this area. Speaking of economic development in the area, we know through the past several years with other newer properties and shopping centers developed in the Murfreesboro area, that some of the older, it happens in every community, some of the older shopping centers become more vacant, and that's happened here at Mercury Plaza. See some vacancies there, and hopefully more people in the area and newer investment will help support some of the commercial facilities around the property as well. So as we move into master planning these properties, there are always several guiding principles that we want to consider. And these are similar, a little bit different given the context of where we are in near the downtown area of Murfreesboro, but certainly in any effort, we're going to want to respect the context and scale of the community. We are developing more than just buildings. We are also affecting the streets and sidewalks. So we'll want to make sure that the streets, courts, and alleys for the residents and city are developed with safety and security in mind. We want to design the homes and spaces that address those streets. So if people can see the street and they're not hidden from that, they have windows out to, or porches, or courtyards, or whatever out to the street, it makes it safe. Eyes on the street make it safe for everybody. We want to support the health and wellness through sidewalks, let people get out and walk and be able to connect to green open spaces, parks, playgrounds, community amenities as it Patterson. We want to provide safe connections to and through the neighborhood, as I mentioned, as you drive through the neighborhood or walk through the neighborhood, and then optimize the property development, encourage and support private investment. As I mentioned, we hope this investment by the Housing Authority will only provide support for those that are interested in either purchasing to live or purchasing to renovate homes in the area, and commercial facilities as well. There are also some planning strategies with a degree of what we look at for the density of the housing. And we've just very graphically, basically illustrated some of these. As you look at a development pattern for a residential community like this, you can consider different options. One option is to look at individual living units, and they address the street not too differently than what's in the neighborhood right now on some of the smaller homes. This is a very similar development pattern that was used at Oakland Court. There are sometimes what that does, and as we met with the city this morning on the project, and they pointed out what that does is create some open space, but it's more a private open space for that homeowner and their yard. And that can be good when you have a very dense neighborhood or kind of a pocket of neighborhoods. Sometimes you need to look at more of a grouping of homes, like a grouping of townhomes that you might see, or traditional grouped homes as you see in these diagrams. And what that does, as you can see, when they're grouped together, sometimes that leaves a larger outdoor space. And at Oakland, what we were able to do with that larger outdoor space is create, a park area defined by trees and sidewalks, a pergola area. And sometimes when you have larger, a more dense footprint or a taller footprint, that gives you more open air space to provide walking trails and other amenities like that. So I think we have a poll now that to kind of get some feedback from you all about how, what you think, and if you can take a moment to answer that question about density and open space. What balance of density and open space do you envision for Mercury Park? We'd like to get your feedback. I'll give you a minute to answer that. I hope everybody's had an opportunity to answer. So we'll go on here. Also, if you take the survey online, we'd love to hear your thoughts on kind of approaches to homes and single family and stylistic choices, single family homes, duplexes and triplexes. You can see that they can come in many different configurations. Townhomes, architectural style can really vary from traditional to modern, but gives you some of those more developed opportunities for landscaped open space. And then lastly, what we'd call a multi-level apartment. And I know you've seen these all over town, all over Nashville, any city you're of any scale you're in, what you can develop with a multi-level apartment project. And as well, in the survey, we'd like to hear from the community and residents what qualities and characteristics you think are the most important for your lifestyle in particular. I think probably there's not a bad one on here. So we've got several pages of these, but when we did the in-person charrette a couple of years ago on Oakland, we gave people stickers to put on the things that were the most important to them. So if you're taking this survey online, we had hoped that you'd kind of circle those things that are very important to you: sustainability, you know, whether it's gardening, or the opportunity to have parks, or social, you have a certain neighbor next to you. That's kind of the idea for these, that we'd hope to get some feedback on what you find is very important in your neighborhood particularly. I remember last time flowers were really important to folks and to have in their neighborhood, you know, landscape, sidewalks, and flowers. So just little feedback like that would be helpful. As I mentioned, the charrette process, last time was in person, this time is virtual. We've got 3 major milestones in this charrette process this time. We are here today in the information gathering component of this charrette and master planning process. Tomorrow we'll have a couple more meetings similar to this, where we're gathering information from specific groups. Our firm and our team will go away for 2 weeks. We will take the information we've learned from you and your engagement on these surveys, and we will present some design options, and we will be back and hold another virtual event on February 10th and 11th. And that will be published on the website, the actual time, date of that. We'll present several options and let you vote on which option you find is the most appealing. As I was going over those development opportunities, I should have said, a lot of times it's not one or the other, it's a nice mixture of it. And we'll try to take your input and think in those terms as we put these design options together. After we get your feedback on that, then we will come back 2 weeks again later toward the end of February on the 24th and 25th with a final solution and present that to the public and the Housing Authorities Board for approval to move forward with. So that's kind of the process we're going through. And lastly, just wanted to throw up a few images. If you do have the opportunity, please go to mercuryparkmasterplan.com. You'll see most all of the information that I presented today. You will have an opportunity for an online survey. It's pretty self-explanatory. Click and go to that. And as I mentioned, after this webinar today, you'll be prompted with a link to that, and you could do it this afternoon if you have time. We also have on the website some links to some interactive boards. And now I think I will turn it over to Richard and stop sharing and ask if Richard Foster with our office can kind of take you to the concept board. And
yeah, Margaret, can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay, before I do that, let me share the results from the poll we took a few moments ago. We have about 18 people have joined us online, and about 10 people had a chance to vote. And so I'm sharing the results of that poll now. It looks like 60% favored the traditional neighborhood, with 30% for the kind of low-rise apartments, 2 floors.
Okay,
So,
great.
with
Thank you
that,
for
yeah,
participating.
Sorry, I'm driving and trying to change. I've got you spotlighted, so let me take off your spotlight, Margaret. And now I will share my screen. Okay, so what I'm sharing right now is the website that Margaret just mentioned. This really becomes your gateway into everything Mercury Park Master Plan. We will be updating this website as we go. So here in a couple weeks, as we have new information and options and plans that Margaret kind of mentioned for phase 2, that'll all be updated and loaded up onto this website. Right now, we've got a number of ways that you can kind of interact with this site. I'm going to click over here. I'm not going to walk through the whole website, but I do want to jump over to, I think it's the location right here. On this location page, we have opportunity to engage with those online whiteboards that Margaret talked about. So at the bottom of those pages, you will get to a link that will take you directly to Concept Board. When you are first arrive at Concept Board, it's going to, if this is your first time using it, you're going to be seeing a screen like this right here. You will click on the guest access, enter your name, and then access as a guest. And I'm going to go ahead and jump over to that board. And you'll see something like this. And this is, like I said, this is a digital whiteboard space. You can kind of move around and scroll. This is available for everyone. The nice thing about this, traditionally, if you participated last time when we did Oakland Court, you'll remember that we had opportunities for you to vote by stickers or mark on things and draw on maps. Since we're not able to get together live this time, we put that stuff together on the concept board. There's some information here that kind of walks you through how to use the board. It's fairly simple. At the top of the menu, at the top of the window, there's a menu of a series of tools. You kind of point and grab. A lot of the things on this board are going to be locked down, but there are a certain number of things that you can grab and move. You can draw and you can leave notes. So this board really is intended for you to help us understand more about the community. We did our best to kind of do a survey and kind of note places of interest, shopping, churches, places of worship, schools, those sorts of things. But no one knows a community better than the residents and the people that live there day to day. So we really want your help to help us understand this community. So for instance, I can come over here and grab this this icon right here, and I can place this little basketball to represent a place to play somewhere where your kids might play. And you really can just kind of grab it. And if say that's a really important spot, you can note that up. You can also let us know, if there's a path or something that's really important. For instance, maybe your kids walk to school, and they do so this way, and perhaps they cut through the community center on their way to school. Us understanding those paths of circulation is really important. So the more that you can help us understand the community, the better we'll be able to kind of engage with that information as we start to kind of develop options for you to kind of look at. So I'm going to jump over to, we've got 3 of these concept boards put together, and they're all available on the website. And I think Gray put a link to them in the chat as well. So I'm on the maps. I'm going to jump over to the design preferences board. And this is the one Margaret kind of walked through a moment ago. Very similar to what we were just talking about a second ago, right? Instead of us being able to have live kind of dot voting, we can do that digitally by literally kind of grabbing and copying these dots and say, everybody in the window, in the poll today, a lot of people thought that this was their favorite. I'm kind of partial to townhomes myself, so I'm going to put a dot there, right? And kind of same thing with I can just copy and paste, Control C, Control V. Once I've got a dot, I can place them on things that I think are really attractive and I'd love to see, represented in the community. So the more participation we get with these boards, I think the better we'll understand the community. How's that, Margaret?
Thank you, Richard. That helps. If I were looking at this for the first time and I hadn't been to concept board, I think I'd be intimidated just because I've never done it. I was when I first started using it. I was like, oh my goodness, what's this? But if even I can use it, everybody can use it. It's pretty user friendly. So please just jump over there and give it a try. I think you'll find it. I think it's fun. I think you'll find it fun too. And we, as Richard said, we very highly value your input. Now, I guess I think we've had a question or two. I don't see any questions now. Richard, do you see anybody? If anybody has any questions or would like to have a discussion on any topic, please feel free to raise your hand, and we'll make sure and try to connect your audio and video with us. Do you have any raised hands?
We do. Pamela has her hand raised, so I'm going to allow Pamela to speak.
Okay.
Pamela, it looks like you are muted. Can you?
Okay, I've unmuted now. Do you?
Okay.
So the constituents that live in those areas are not really, they're older in some of those areas, and they're not really equipped to be able to use a whiteboard. I struggle sometimes with the whiteboard myself as I'm moving it, and a lot of those people are in their 80s and 70s and 80s. So my concern is that you might not possibly be able to get the participation to really get a clear understanding of what some of those needs are in that area. That's a concern for me. And not only that, for those of us that have houses in the area, will you be purchasing some of the lots to build some of the, if it turns out, single families or townhomes or whatever? Can you just sort of bring me up to speed on some of those things that I have questions about?
I think that's good. Thank you for the feedback, Pamela. I think you're hitting on a very important topic. We were concerned, particularly about the residents in Parkside, current residents in Parkside that may, one, be a senior and not real savvy on, if you're like my parents weren't too savvy on the computer. So, and then there may be folks that have ability to get connectivity in their homes. So we have worked with the Housing Authority, and notifications were sent out to all the residents that we were having this online event purely for safety's sake, for COVID. But if anybody needed to have an in-person opportunity to see what we were doing, we have, for those residents, they were given a phone number to call, and tomorrow and in each of these phases along in our master planning process, we will do, we've given them a choice, either an outdoor opportunity to see this presentation, if that's what they feel safer with, or a socially distanced, using hand sanitizers, mask required, temperatures taken, kind of indoor opportunity. And we're limiting the, I don't think we've reached capacity by any means with all the folks that are interested, but just limiting that to safe numbers, and providing also an outdoor opportunity to address that. Now,
right.
with regard,
we're right in the middle of flu season as well as COVID-19. So having this small of a number of people based on, you said 18 people, is not a large representation virtually that we're doing today. And I do understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, I'm not really sure that people are in the age group of getting out in the midst of flu and COVID. So I'm just wanting to make sure that we reach the people that we are doing. And I know you're using hand sanitizer and taking all the precautions and taking your temperature. But again, a lot of people are still frightened to be able to get out, because taking the temperature is not a real good way to determine whether or not you are a carrier for COVID-19 or not. It is just a simple way that you're doing that. And so I do have some concerns about that, but I did want to voice that, and I thank you very much for addressing my concerns. The other question that I had was, will you, for us that own, I lived on Carver since in the 60s. So I own a house over there. So will you be, what will happen with some of those houses? Those people that want to sell, will you be doing that? Or are you just looking at the other areas that surround the houses right off of Mercury, that are Carver area is what I'm particularly interested in?
Well, I'll just say that our initially our focus is on the housing authority properties. I guess I would maybe defer to Mr. Thomas Rowe, who's the executive director of the Murfreesboro Housing Authority. And Thomas, I don't know if you want to unmute and answer that, provide any insights in there, or just we're focused mainly on your property. How's that work? You're muted, I think.
I would say that if there's anyone out there that's interested in selling their property and their property joins the housing authority property, we would certainly be interested in entertaining a conversation with them.
Okay, so the concern always is, and I'm sorry, I always have a lot of questions when we're doing things like this, so just bear with me.
Sure.
One of the things that I don't want to happen is that sometimes people can't upkeep their property. You know what I'm saying? And you're going to put all of these wonderful, because I remember when the housing authority had those houses that were built over there, and the conditions of them were really strict, and things looked really good. There was grass and all of the things that are there now. And so I don't want to be surrounded by the street that I live on, or that I own the property, are single family homes. And I don't want to be surrounded by just townhomes and things of that nature. I'd like to see a way that we could blend the single families with the multi-family homes there. So in other words, I don't want to have these 3, 4, 5-story houses and then we're just sitting around with single family. So I'd like some real serious consideration to be taken in that development process. So I'm gonna be quiet because I know other people have questions and concerns, but I'd like to see sidewalks. I want grass, trees, all of the 9 yards of things, and to really upkeep and bring the property that surrounds the housing authority, that it will be looking real, real good and be a nice habitable place for people to enjoy their families and their grandkids and things of that nature. Okay.
Well, Pamela, thank you. I think that's well stated. I think that those goals you stated are very similar to what we outlined. I think particularly with, as you suggest, keeping in mind all the nice amenities, of course, of nice landscaping, street trees, sidewalks, but the scale is so important. If you have a single family house, you don't probably want to jam a big, triplex or a big row of townhouses right up against that. So that absolutely, I think those things are very important, and I appreciate you bringing that up. Any other questions or hands raised?
I'm on mute. Cardo, you had your hand raised a moment ago. Are you still Do you have a question? You want to raise your hand again and I'll let you speak? All right, you should be able to speak once you unmute yourself.
Okay, my name is Ricardo. And one of the questions I was asking, I heard you say about Parkside and the age of it. And I was like, I was wondering because I was around when Parkside was torn down and rebuilt. That was in the Patsy Nolan's years. And it went from red brick to yellow brick. So to say it was in the 50s, I don't know. Now, one of the things that we talked about during some of our board meetings was one thing. It still had that, it still had the ambiance of the old brick. And but see, instead of brick is block now. Like the bread brick that we have over there on Academy and Oakland, we just upgraded it a bit. But and see, most of everything that I really wanted to say, my good friend already said in front of me, because I was worried about the older residents. The older residents, I go through this with Thomas and the board. We listen to it, we go through it. But I was wondering about some of the older people. And I was really just seeing how many of the older residents, the older constituents were going to be able to make this call because they don't, in the days of COVID, they don't, the kids are scared to go help grandma and grandpa out. And a lot of times grandpa and grandma don't have a phone or don't have a computer. So they can't get the same thing as everybody else. And that was, she took away that from me. But we've just got to come up with a way that we can get their opinions. We need their input. We need what they want. It's one thing for us to say, oh, this is nice and pretty, but it's nice for the people that's going to be living in it saying this is nice and pretty. And that's the reason why I was so glad when she said, this is what I want. So that was all I had in my little question. And Thomas,
Absolutely.
me and Thomas could talk about the brick in the block later on.
Right. Well, I'll need, I'll work with Thomas too, just to make sure we've got those dates right when we state those again.
Okay.
I appreciate you bringing that up, and I think it's incumbent after yours and Pamela's comments, and we've talked about it many times too. The seniors that are in the community, you're right, it's such a scary time for them. They don't want to venture out, shouldn't probably venture out, but we hoped we're addressing that. It may be that there's a way that we can put a mailer in the mail for them to, provide a survey for us. I mean, we'll try to think of every way we can to make sure that we touch base with them in a safe way.
Thank you very much.
We've got one more. B. Edwards has his hand raised. I'm going to allow you to speak now once you unmute yourself.
Thank you. It's Brandy. That's just my sign in for Zoom. My question, I was a little bit confused. Okay, in reference to the older people, are we referring to Parkside?
Yes.
Okay, well, I live in Parkside and we're not predominantly older people. I can probably think of 6, offhand that are, no, we're not, no, it's not majority older people, but my suggestion to kind of, my thing is reach out. If older people is the concern, then, just, hey, pull their coattail. Hey, do you need me to help you, or can I show you, or, I would just say reach out. But no, we're not predominantly elder. We don't have predominantly elder residents there, no. And I couldn't take the survey because I'm driving. So I did want to say that even I'm one of the 18, but I couldn't, I'm driving, so I couldn't do the survey.
No
But,
worries.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate you.
Well, thank you, Brandy, for participating. It's huge. We so appreciate it. And you can go, I'll just say that survey is going to be up for a while. You can go anytime to the website and take that. And we'd love to get your feedback, particularly as a resident there at Parkside. It would be so helpful. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for coming. Thank you
Will
for
do.
joining.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
And just a reminder, we do have some hard copies of the survey that we will be sharing with the residents, any residents that we meet with, and we have some extra copies. We can always have more made and get those to all of the residents.
Yeah,
So
we're bringing some tomorrow for our meeting with the Housing Authority Board, and we've got, like Richard said, we've got extras. We can leave them there at the Housing Authority, or they can be mailed to the residents. We're happy to reach out however we can.
Okay, Pamela has her hand raised again, so I'm going to allow her to speak.
Let me just make sure that I clarify. I'm speaking on behalf of the people that live in the surrounding areas that are a surrounding park, whatever you all are talking about. That's what I'm speaking about. I don't know about the people that live in this park, whatever area that you all talk. And the people that live in the surrounding areas of that are elderly people. And so I want to make sure that I make that perfectly clear, because I'm not trying to say that the people live in Parkland or whatever are older, but the surrounding areas, the people are older. And the concern is not to have houses that are, as I explained to you before, duplexes, 5-level, whatever, because they are single family homes that are surrounding that. So let me just make sure that I clarify that. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you doing that. Do we have anybody else?
We do not have any more hand raised at this time.
Okay.
We do have
I think we have a comment maybe in the chat box. Richard, can you? Did I miss that?
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much of a question. Janet, if you'd like to speak to that, I'm happy to give you the floor.
I can read that comment if you.
Yeah, this is.
Yeah.
Hi, this is
Great.
Janet Arning with Inspiritus, which is a nonprofit and that works with the families in Mercury Court and Parkside, providing gardening, which we talked about at the Oakland Court meeting. So we just wanted to put it in your minds that we also have families in these other two communities that we would love to continue to work with in the future.
Well, that's great to know. Thank you, Janet. That was we made every effort. I mean, we were able to achieve finding the plot for that person, each resident having a gardening plot at their home in Oakland. And once we brought that forward with our work with the city, they made sure that that was on every plan. So we will, that's great input. Thank you. We will take that into consideration. Any other questions or comments? Well,
Nope.
see.
I was just going to say, I don't see anything else here, but we might just remind everyone that as this webinar closes, it should give you a direct link to the survey. It should automatically pop up. So if you're available to take that survey now, it give you that opportunity. If you're not, we encourage you to come back and do that at your convenience.
Thank you, Richard. And I should also point out, we have recorded this webinar today. This recording will be placed on the website. Essentially the same information I went over today can be found on the website, but you know, for those older neighbors or maybe, you know, family members that weren't able to join, that you can, if they can find maybe a church or I don't know, wherever, if they can find an opportunity to access the website, they absolutely could listen to this conversation today, this presentation today, and fill out the survey or have a family member help them fill out the survey on the website. So just a reminder, as Richard said, the website is the gateway to this process, and it will be updated regularly as the schemes that we generate are presented. Those schemes will be placed on the website, comments, everything that we can to kind of keep the public updated as we make progress in this master planning process. So again, I want to thank you so much for joining this afternoon and participating and making sure that you're providing feedback in a positive way to help the community grow and improve. So it's been so valuable, and we thank you for doing that. Any other comments as we part? All right, well, thanks everybody. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Richard, are you the host that closes it down,
I
or?
am the host. I'm going to stop the recording.